Welcome to Three Devs, Three Things. Scott, Wes, and I all have something interesting that we found that we'd like to share with you. So let's get right into it. Wes, what do you got?
Yeah, this is really crazy. So Cloudflare rebuilt Next.js with Vite, and they did it with AI. So essentially what they did is they took the entire Next.js test suite. They took $1,100 worth of Claude tokens, and they said, port this to Vite. And apparently 800 open code instances. And they basically rebuilt Next.js, their entire API, most of it. I'll talk about that in a second, using Vite instead of what Next.js uses is either TurboPack or Webpack. And this is kind of cool. So I fired it up. I took the Next Faster app, which is a like McMaster car style website, and that was built on Next.js just to show how fast these websites can be. And I tried to port it over, and I got it rendering. It probably took me about an hour. So it was not just a drop-in replacement. Not everything works. There's a bunch of API endpoints don't work. There was CommonJS issues out the wazoo, which is another one of my complaints with Next.js is that it's still CommonJS. You can use ESM with it, but it all just gets bundled into CommonJS at the end of the day. So I mean, it worked kind of. It loaded about the same speed as TurboPack in dev mode. But I think probably the more interesting thing here is not that they did this. This was clearly just like a publicity stunt. These two companies have been like taking shots at each other for many years.
Yeah, the thing I'm most curious about is what was that AI setup that allowed them to iterate like that? Because I know when I'm working on this stuff, I'm constantly babysitting these things. Like to just let it rip on something and have it output something that is this usable. Granted, they
Yeah.
have the test suite, but like, I want to know what that AI
Well, they said
setup's
here,
like.
the process started with a plan. I spent a couple hours going back and forth with Claude and open code to define the architecture, what to build, et cetera, et cetera. From there, the workflow was straightforward. Define the task, let AI write all the implementations and the tests, run the test suite if the test pass, et cetera. So basically, it was just taking all of the tests and setting up all the shim with the router and whatnot that needs to happen, and then just saying like, hey, just keep punching keys until all of these tests pass, which is crazy.
It sounds like there was a human sitting there waiting for each task to be done,
Yeah.
verifying, and then going on to the next thing. So like this, in a sense, is human assisted. It's not fully AI. I don't know if we're there yet. I'm sure we'll get there at a certain point with agents and everything.
Well, like with these like long running agents, you can just say like once you have your test suite in place, it can just kind of continually loop. You still do need a human in the loop, of course.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of stuff broken with it as well. But I'm curious to see if this is just like a publicity thing, or if this is actually going to like they launched
Yeah.
CIO.gov with it, right, as their like
Yeah.
launch partner. I don't know if this will be a long-term thing, but I'll tell you, I had a Next.js website and I was using Open Next.js. And the way that works is that they take the output bundle from Next.js and then they just start like patching the bundled output, which is just a nightmare. I tried using it for like a month and I ended up just being like, I'm moving over to Wacko.
Yeah, so this is actually just really exciting to me because I think it is, you're right, it's a publicity stunt, but the fact that they built on top of Vite opens up so many more opportunities. Like my mind is just racing because personally, I'm actually working on a framework myself, and
Ooh, me too.
I had yeah, we're going to talk about it in the future. Stay tuned, but I had written off Next.js because of all of the baggage and everything. But the fact that this is built on top of Vite makes it so that I can use the work that they did and build something even more interesting. But now it's all Vite powered. I can use the Vite ecosystem.
It brings up the question of, will projects move their test suites to be private?
Yeah.
Because like that has to suck to like have spent your life's work on it. Like very smart people working on Next.js, and then these orange men come around and just try to re-implement the entire thing in a week. I don't know if this is a joke or not, but Steve from TL Draw has opened up an issue on TL Draw to move all of his test suites private. So someone can't do this to them. And the fact that I don't know if this is a joke or not is kind of scaring me a little bit.
Yeah. And so historically, SQLite actually doesn't publish their test suite. And they've done that before AI. But
Oh,
in a sense, it's kind of like it makes it really hard for someone else to create like a fully compatible SQLite replacement because their test suite is private. Now, people have done it, like there's libsql, but yeah, it's an interesting way to
it's
go
a
about
lot
it.
easier if you have
Yeah,
all the edge cases all the way down
Yeah,
because like
exactly.
documented.
let me tell you,
Yes.
like Next.js has lots of edge cases, right? They have two different bundlers, TurboPack and Webpack, and then they also have like React server components. So there's a front end and a back end running, and it's in common JS, but some stuff is in ESM, and there's also MDX. I had so many problems with that type of stuff. So I guarantee if you have any sort of complex Next.js, it's not going to be as easy as dropping this thing in.
Yeah. What I'm most excited about is that Next.js users will finally get to experience what we've been experiencing for many, many years, that Vite is good. Vite
Yeah,
is way better. Vite is
yeah.
so much better than what you've been using. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, Scott, what do you got?
Oh, I got something that has caused database CEOs all over the internet to start filling their diapers because, my gosh, this has really sparked a lot of controversy for some reason. And what I'm bringing is SpaceTime DB. Now, SpaceTime DB is an interesting project. I gave this a rip a little bit, but I think the thing that has been causing the most amount of drama is from this YouTube video specifically.
Anytime these companies start swinging with their graphs,
Yeah.
I'm just like, I didn't with the Cloudflare stuff. I didn't even look at their like stats and graphs because
Mm.
they're picking whatever they like to show.
So the reason why this has caused quite a bit of stir is because of these benchmarks, which is how many transactions they can process per second. They have this magnifying glass for convex, which is honestly like that's very funny. There's the Planet Scale CEO saying, if you can't tell these aren't comparative benchmarks, you are a moron. The convex folks also had their chance with some snarky tweets calling them little bro, and then the founder of SpaceTime DB. So both convex and planet scale, they're mad. They're big mad, obviously. And so let's talk about SpaceTime DB. I spun up a little Svelte kit app with it. This is just their Svelte demo, and this is running SpaceTime locally on my machine. They have a cloud offering as well. I spun this up, and I found it to be a pretty compelling API to work in. I found the code to be nice. There's some curious things about SpaceTime that, because this started out as a video game database, that there's some clear gaps in their knowledge of how like web stuff works. Like you won't find any SSR examples on their website. So this is mostly SPA stuff that's going on. For the most part, you're defining reducers, and those reducers are your API. They are your connection to the database. And everything else is done client-side, the kind of way that you do in Convex or, you use Supabase. But these things can be used server-side rendering. I'm sure that server-side rendering is possible with this. But what makes SpaceTime different? It's its own database. It's its own database technology. It has ACID guarantees. Everything is atomic. It's fully relational. The tech that makes it interesting is that the database itself is all in RAM. It's all stored in memory. So everything is, they say, nanosecond lookups, but it persists to the data store. So you could think of it as kind of like a relational Redis with a sync to a hard disk storing.
The entire database needs to be loaded into memory, right? So you have a 300 gig database, you need 300 gigs of RAM, which is a great time to launch a RAM-based database, right? With the prices
Yeah.
of RAM right now.
But it is compelling in terms of its use case. And it is fast as hell. When I used it, it's great. And the big gaps, I think, for me is like their auth story is not you can't use better auth in this. You can't just use normal stuff. They're expecting you to use they're expecting you to use like a third-party auth service to then get you that JWT. So like if you want to just have your whole app existing in SpaceTime, it's going to be a bit of a pain unless you already have like an auth server somewhere, an auth DB, an auth server, or you're using just straight up OAuth from other things like that, or you can use their product. You can self-host this, so there's that. But you can't self-host the auth part. So I found it pretty compelling, honestly. I think it's neat. I appreciate different use cases. And the fact that a lot of games are built using this tech, or not like a lot of games, but games are built using this tech effectively for real-time MMOs and stuff like that. That's compelling to me.
Yeah, it's a cool idea. I'm always hesitant of people writing their own database. Like, why not? Like the way you described, I'll have to look into it more. But the way you described it, I almost think you could build some kind of caching layer in front of Postgres or in front of MySQL.
That's
or
what
something
Zero
like
is. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Zero's
like
the
get
caching layer in front of that.
and get a similar experience. So it's interesting that they went from scratch. But yeah, I'll have to check it out.
CJ, what do you got for us today?
All right. Now for something completely different. This does not involve VCs or funding or
Drama.
or drama. This is for the nerds. So this person, Lyra, implemented an x86 CPU purely in CSS. I'll talk about that what that means in a second. But this page only has a tiny bit of JavaScript. The only reason this JavaScript is here is to give it a more consistent clock cycle, because a CPU needs a ticking. And so the JavaScript gives that, but it can run without it as well. You can disable JavaScript, and then it just uses CSS animations as the clock, the tick in the actual computer itself. So what you're looking at is this x86 program that they wrote is being rendered here with CSS, and they're basically just using modern features of CSS to get this working. So this doesn't work across all browsers. It only works in Chrome. What you're seeing down here are like the memory registers. So essentially, it's storing information in CSS variables, and those are the registers. And I'll caveat it with they've implemented just a 16-bit version of x86. So this doesn't run on 64-bit. It's not 32-bit. Essentially, programs that were written for the Intel 8086. So this was a chip that came out in 1978. So like the Tandy 1000 or the NEC PC, like these are older computers that any program written for them could basically run on CSS in the browser here. And so it has a way to provide input. And if you press and hold, that will run program number 1, and it'll start calculating the Fibonacci sequence. And it's absolutely fascinating to look at the source of this page.
What?
So we've got our clock, we've got all of these custom properties, and these are like memory registers. So I think like each one of these is a register in memory. So all of these are there. And then from there, lots of functions that I could not explain, but we also have calc, right? So lots of computation is happening using the calc keyword. So this is fascinating. As you can see, it's running, it's doing its best job to calculate each number, but this is how slow it would run because it can't just spit it all out. It's literally calculating each number based on the previous results.
Man.
This is crazy. I
crazy.
love CSS. What the hell is going
crazy.
on here? I thought I was good at this stuff. What?
My favorite part of the README is I just straight up wrote the CSS. It's handwritten in Sublime text, but
Yes.
for the more repetitive parts, I wrote a Python script. What?
Yeah. And they said they did not use AI, and says, I don't think you could build a project like this with an LLM. This is also just another refreshing thing. It's like, no AI involved here, just some pure engineering. And I got it running locally. So I built a little C program that when it spins up, it says, hello, syntax FM.
What?
And then it'll show us the inputs. And then if you press 1, it should say it again. I don't know if it loops. I don't know if I got looping working. Yeah, it doesn't loop. I was trying to get it to just say hello syntax forever.
So you wrote the C program,
Yes.
compiled it to what, like 16-bit?
Yeah, so the way this works is I have this C program, and it is built using this build IA16 package, and they actually have some Python scripts in the x86 CSS repo that helps with this. So this build C will actually compile your program into a binary, and then build CSS will take that binary and turn it into the actual CSS instructions, and then all of that gets loaded onto the page itself to give you the running program. So in terms of how all of the CSS features are being used, it uses variables to store the CPU state. So registers, instruction pointers, flags, memory, all of those are stored in CSS variables. It uses the @function keyword for reusable things. So it implements like ands and ors and exclusive ors. And then it uses if and style queries for conditional logic. So CSS, not in every browser, but currently in Chrome, CSS is not only Turing complete, but you can literally build an entire computer inside of CSS.
Dude, style queries enable so much cool stuff. We were just talking about them. Man, style queries are dope.
You think you know CSS, and like, or you
But you
think
have
you're
no
up
idea.
on all the latest features. But then there's people that are just like, I wonder if I could build a computer. Unbelievable. All right. That's it for today. If you liked the video, comment and share below. Let us know what you thought of it. I love when people tag us in things that we should be talking about. Keep doing it. Peace.